Good afternoon.
Hey, Tim.
There. Hello, everybody.
Hi.
Hey, Pat.
Tim, you did a good job with our annual meeting. You are so talented.
What's that?
Thank you.
Oh.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, Rob.
Hey,
Hi,
Rob.
So we'll plan to start right on time. But we should probably wait for Jessica. Coming right along here. Pat, do you have Dave in the background there somewhere?
Yes, he's in the kitchen talking. Can you hear him?
No.
Good afternoon, Sydney. I don't think anybody's greeted you yet.
Hi, Tim. Thank you.
It's your last week, Sydney, of school?
Should be my last day with the exception of a few communication meetings, I guess, a few short meetings.
Mm-hmm.
And don't forget to return all your library books. That was a big reminder they sent us back in the day.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm. Do you go home? Or are you going to a job or what?
I'm going to be the urban forestry field manager at the Savannah Tree Foundation in Savannah, Georgia.
Oh, you are? Wonderful. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Mm.
Few different species than up here.
Just a few. Actually, I found out recently that Georgia has 33 species of oaks.
Wow. Wow. Thank you for working on this project. That's been wonderful.
Oh, of course. I hope that it will continue.
Yeah, let's hope so. Did you enjoy seeing every street in Orono?
Really, I did. It was kind of crazy that I hadn't been down some that I definitely thought I had seen most of Orono, but then apparently there was more.
There was more and more and more. You didn't know how far it went, did you?
No.
Did you get all the way out to Pushaw?
I did in a way. Yeah, there weren't that many public streets down there. And I did exclude Gould's Landing. Just because I did want to focus on a lot of the heavier trafficked areas, such as like Webster Park and the Stillwater Trail.
Yeah, right. That's understandable for sure.
So
I don't even know. Go ahead, Rob.
Go ahead, Sarah. I think we're ready to get started. I had introductions for a couple reasons. We have, of course, some special guests here today, but also we have some new members. So I thought it would be appropriate to introduce ourselves today, and then we'll go right into the presentation by our guests, Sydney and Ashley. So I'm Rob Yerkes. I'm the Public Works Director as well as the tree warden here in Orono. And Cindy, I guess you can go next.
I'm Cindy Young. Cindy. I'm so sorry.
Cindy,
I'm sorry, I'm Cindy, you're Sydney, whatever. Go ahead, Sydney.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I'm Cindy Young. I'm a Master of Forestry student at UMaine, and I will be graduating this year.
Now, Sydney.
Should I go next?
Cindy.
I'm Cindy Blees, and a co-chair with Dave Thompson on the Orono Tree Board.
Dave and Pat.
Pat Thompson, I'm on the tree board.
I'm Dave Thompson. I'm a retired forester, still licensed.
Jessica.
I'm Jessica Leahy. I'm on the tree board. I'm also a forestry professor at the University of Maine.
And Tim.
Tim White, obviously on the tree board, forestry graduate, former licensed forester.
With Jennifer.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Dan. I just moved here to Orono back in December, and I'm excited to be a part of the tree board.
Great. Nice to meet you.
Thanks.
And how about Terry?
Hi, I'm Terry Triandafillo. I'm a longtime resident of Orono, I think 26 or 7 years. I have a forestry degree, and I've been working for Seven Islands Land Company for 26 or 27 years now. Glad to be here.
Jason.
Hello, everybody. Jason Clark, new, I think associate is the title, associate member of the tree board, and happy to be here.
Right.
Hi.
Yes, welcome everybody. And like I said, we do have some special guests here to make a presentation on a project they've been working on. Jessica, did you want to say something by way of introduction?
Yeah, so I'm pleased to introduce Sydney Young and Ashley Martone. Sydney is a Master of Forestry student, which is our professional master's program. And Ashley is a senior in our forestry program. Both of these programs are accredited by the Society of American Foresters. We pride ourselves in the School of Forest Resources on training competent foresters with strong field skills who get things done. And I think you'll find today that their projects exemplify that. We also pride ourselves on launching careers, professional careers. And so, as Sydney mentioned, she is off to become the Urban Forestry Field Manager for the Savannah Tree Foundation nonprofit in Georgia. And Ashley is off to Warwick, Rhode Island to be a soil conservationist for the USDA Natural Resources Conservation Service. So they're both really top students. And I'm really glad that they get this very public, no pressure opportunity to share their work. Are you able to share your screen, Sydney?
I will start doing that now. Let's see. All right, can everybody see the screen and hear me?
Yes.
Great. Great. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Emerald Ash Borer Preparedness Plan and Mapping Overview, prepared by Ashley Martone and me. This overview was primarily written with the Orono Tree Board in mind. However, I am aware that there are general members of the public viewing, and I have added supplementary information for those aspiring tree folk to follow along a bit easier. The emerald ash borer, whose scientific name is Agaricus planipennis, is a threat to all native species of ash in North America. Estimates range regarding the number of species of ash. However, the U.S. Forest Service claims there are 9 species of native ash in North America, with a total of about 8 billion individual trees. The pest is considered a severe threat because it kills 98 to 100% of the trees it infests and can cause stand mortality within about 6 years. So if you take anything away from this presentation, it should be this slide and the following two. I will warn you now. If you have ash trees or feel like being a helpful citizen scientist around town, there are some symptoms and signs to be aware of that may be indications of emerald ash borer damage. Initial symptoms, which are reactions trees have to a pest, include epicormic branching, dead branches, and blonding. Epicormic branches are those that sprout from the trunk of the tree, generally in an effort for the tree to protect itself from a pest. And dead branches could be a symptom of the emerald ash borer killing the tree. Blonding, which refers to the blonde color of the bark, which is in the top right corner, that occurs when woodpeckers search for food, and because the tree is unhealthy, the bark peels much more readily. So signs or indications from the pest activity include D-shaped exit holes, such as the image on the top left. Additionally, galleries are these S-shaped tunnels on the bottom left that are created by the larvae and may also appear, as well as notches from the insect feeding on the leaves after emergence on the bottom right. It is worth noting that there are a few differences between the emerald ash borer and the native tiger beetle. The Maine Forest Service created this diagram as a comparison of the two, which I thought was pretty helpful. As you can see, they're both roughly the same size. However, the tiger beetle has a quote waist and will more than likely be found on the ground, while the emerald ash borer is found on the tree and has a more straight-lined body. I have included the link to make a report here as well, which is also available on the Maine Forest Service website, but it should be noted that the emerald ash borer has not yet been found in Orono, thankfully. The host of the emerald ash borer includes all members of the Fraxinus genus, which are ash trees, as well as the Chinese fringe tree, which is Chionanthus virginicus. It does not actually include mountain ash, since that is actually a member of the Sorbus genus. And the life cycle of the emerald ash borer is important to know because it is important to understand how it affects the trees. So it starts around May to September when the emerald ash borers mate, and females lay 60 to 90 eggs in the ash bark tree crevices. And October through March is when the eggs hatch and the larvae create those S-shaped corridors. They are eating away at the phloem of the tree and slowly girdling it by cutting off its vascular flow and consequently its nutrient supply. In April, those larvae transform into adults, and by late May, the adult beetles exit through the tree's bark, leaving that distinctive D-shaped exit hole. So those holes are actually due to the emergence of the pest, not necessarily the insertion of it. And females lay eggs 3 to 4 weeks before dying and start the cycle all over again. So its origin in the United States actually began in Detroit, Michigan in 2002 via shipping pallets entering the United States, and quickly spread where it is now, which is 38 states and 5 Canadian provinces. So in roughly 20 years, it covered a lot of ground. So why is this? Well, it is transported mainly by firewood, so it can go from being 200 miles away to as short as 20 very quickly with a single careless person who did not know about the emerald ash borer. Eventually, the emerald ash borer made its way to Maine in 2018, where it was found in May that year in Aroostook County. And in June 2018, the Maine Department of Agriculture, Conservation, and Forestry acted quickly and published a public memo addressed to tree and shrub sellers recommending against selling the white fringe tree because it is a host. So in September 2018, it was found in Western York County. And 1 year later, in September 2019, it was found in Cumberland County. Recently in August through October of 2020, you may have heard that Lowe's Bangor was unsure if 39 ash trees sold contained emerald ash borer. 11 buyers were identified and contacted by the DACF requesting that they contact the department. There has not been much follow-up that I could find on those trees. So it's kind of a to be determined kind of thing. In Even more recently, last month, emerald ash borer was found in Oxford County in the city of Westbrook for the first time. These are now all of the counties that emerald ash borer has been detected. And much of this movement happened even with the quarantine areas in place. So what about Orono? Well, we have three ash trees, three native ash trees, green, white, and black, all of which look very similar, clearly. And in 2002, Mike Saunders, who is now a professor of silviculture at Purdue, conducted a tree survey of the trees in Orono in order for Orono to be considered a Tree City USA. This graph is from his original survey, and I added corresponding arrows for white and green ash here. It should be noted that the black ash is not included in this graph, but about 200 ash trees were found in those survey boundaries, which did include some private trees, and about 70 ash trees were found that were publicly owned. That brings us to last fall, 2020, when I went out to conduct my survey with the help of Ashley Martone. And this survey was conducted between October and November of 2020. I included all public streets within the town of Orono's boundaries, as well as Stillwater Avenue Trail and Webster Park. I decided that because right-of-ways changed from street to street, that the distance on either side of the road would be 10 feet from the sidewalk, or if there was no sidewalk, then 10 feet from the road's edge. I used a Trimble Geo7X for precision with the geographic coordinate system of WGS 1984 and a projected coordinate system of NAD 1983 with zone 19 north. The data I collected included whether or not the tree was living or dead, the diameter at breast height or DBH in inches, whether or not blonding was present, which was denoted yes or no. And it should be also noted that even if I did note yes, that didn't, and there was blonding, that did not necessarily indicate that the emerald ash borer was present. It just indicated some slight damage to the bark of the tree that looked to me like blonding. I also included whether or not power lines were within hazardous range of the tree. So that was yes or no. Or if the tree would die, that whether or not that power line would, the tree would pose a hazard to the power line. So the species of tree as well was marked as green, white, black, or unknown, and whether or not there were saplings. Sapling standards were basically if a tree was less than 2 inches in diameter and there were groups of 3 or more in clumps, 5 feet apart or less. So I will tell you ahead of time that only one of these groups were found, and I believe the standard of having 3 in combination with road salting, compaction, and competing vegetation all had involvement with that outcome. So the results of this study or of this inventory were that the species composition was the majority of the species were green ash, unsurprisingly, with 63%. And while 31% of the species were unidentified, I was fairly certain that they were either white or green ash. Additionally, Fraxinus excelsior, or the non-native European ash, may have been planted as well, and I did not want to confuse those with any other species. So even though that does not have an effect on the emerald ash borer, because it does target Fraxinus species pretty much evenly across the board, except for ash found in its native range. But I figured it was important for me to make a distinction. To my knowledge, the mortality rate for this species is as high as the native trees as well. So the power line data showed that 74% of the trees were either not by a power line or pose no potential hazard to a power line, while about 26% were. While I did not record whether or not trees would make good candidates for specimen trees, I did run a query in ArcGIS, which showed the overlap between trees larger than 6 inches in diameter that did not have damage. And this map is what presented. These trees are subject to change, and I would recommend the tree board inspect the potential for specimen trees further. Treatment options include, for EAB, include bark sprays and tree injections. Bark injections tend to work better. However, a diameter limit of 6 inches or greater is required for bark injections so that repeated injections do not damage the tree. This is similar to when you tap maple trees and you don't want to overdo it. The neocotinoid based systemic insecticides such as imamectin benzoate and dinotefuran are also considered some of the best long-term approaches to managing EIB and are some of the least expensive, with about $8 per inch in diameter. It is applied every 2 years at a medium rate as well. So pesticides are normally applied at a low rate, medium rate, and high rate. These are not known to have negative effects on pollinators and may actually help control the invasive Japanese beetle that is also currently in Maine. And organic and natural control options include azadirachtin, which is similar to neem oil, and parasitoid wasps. Neem derivatives are costly and less effective than neocotinoid-based systemic insecticides, but are generally viewed as more environmentally friendly by the public. The public perception basically is better with the neem derivatives. Parasitoid wasps are a means of controlling emerald ash borer populations, but they have not been shown to significantly reduce the spread of emerald ash borer or their effects on trees, although Ashley may have more information and could probably prove me wrong since she has more experience in studies with them. I boiled down the treatment options to be fairly simple, where there were 3 options here, and these were fairly cut and dry. These options are option 1, to proactively treat all the trees, basically before emerald ash borer is in town. Option 2 is to proactively remove the trees. And option 3, which is to reactively remove all the trees. I would recommend perhaps a hybrid of these options where we treat specimen trees with measured timing. For example, treat specimen trees the first year and other prioritized trees in the following years. It should also be noted that these again are more clean cut scenarios and would vary if a hybrid model is chosen. I also do not want to exclude the fact that I would very much encourage replanting regardless of the scenarios that are chosen. And as far as treatment goes, the Forest Service said in a webinar in March that treating the trees is generally the cheapest option as opposed to cutting and replacing them. So I separated the cost out per tree, and the costs of treatment were much lower than the costs of removal. And this to me sounds about right. This is not including labor costs for both scenarios, however, or the intrinsic values gained from trees if they are kept. And here's an overview of the tree locations overall. These are color coded with obviously green, white, brown, undetermined, and the sapling cluster. And here is an overview of the locations zoomed in a little bit. And as you can see, there are clusters of ash on trees on public property that will have to be dealt with probably in one form or another. Thankfully, we are not woefully unprepared. There are purple prism traps throughout Maine that are placed by the U.S. Forest Service, all within about 30 miles of Orono. And it should be noted that these are not a surefire way to detect emerald ash borer, since they can be tricky to detect even with the traps. I will close with my management recommendations to you all and perhaps a fair warning. Save money now. This is coming and will impact our street trees at some point in the future, whether or not we replace them, treat them, cut them, whichever. This is coming and will impact our trees at some point. And to be honest, I don't want to find out whether or not that's sooner or later. The tree survey could also use an update. Mike did a great job, but it would be great to get an inventory of other trees in case more diseases arrive, or honestly, just to have an updated survey, just to know what trees we have. It would be great to get UMaine students involved around these trees. As far as the already located ash trees, as well as keep an eye out for some I may have missed, and rate the trees possibly on a scale of 1 to 5 for form to help find specimen trees. This would actually be done fairly easily in the winter. So if anybody's looking for a project over winter break, and it would be great if they got pictures for documentation as well. I got some, but not all. Applying for grants would also be a huge help. These are great, and this is a worthy cause. If we treat as many trees as possible and educate the public as always, I think that Orono could really really maintain some of their public trees. And finally, I would like to thank the Orono Tree Board for allowing me to speak today. Jessica Leahy and Adam Dagno, Bill Livingston, and Parnaz Rahimzadeh, my family and friends who all got me through grad school in one piece. And now Ashley will give an overview of her maps and I can take questions afterwards.
All right. Hello, I am Ashley Martone, and let me just real quick share in the chat so that you guys can see. Oh, is there a chat? Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, I think you want to do all panelists and attendees in the dropdown. So make sure that it isn't just all panelists, which is the default.
Okay, I think I sent it. So you guys can
You did it
access.
right.
Yeah. Now you can access the map too as I do my presentation. So this is a map that I developed for the project with Sydney, and this will show you the street trees. And it's an interactive map that you can access on the web. This is an interactive web map of Orono's ash trees. As you can see on the left-hand side, there's an interactive legend. If you click on the type of tree that you want to view, it will turn off the other trees. If you use the location search bar, you can search for a specific location and it will zoom in. When you click on a specific tree, it will tell you all about that tree. This was a green ash of DBH of 17.3. There was blonding on that tree. This is the date it was captured. If you click show all, it will show all the trees again. Can you hear it? This is an interactive web.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Map of Orono's. When you click on a specific tree, it will tell you all about that tree. This was a green ash of DBH of 17.3. There was blonding on that tree. This is the date it was captured. If you click show all, it will show all the trees again. You can also share this map on any social media or just copy and paste the link. This map can be embedded in a website as well. Okay, now I'm going to show you how to capture data on your mobile phone. You'll have to download the Field Maps application. Open the application. And in your application, you'll have to download certain maps. The map that we're going to be working with is the Orono Tree Map 2. This one is directly connected to the web map. When you click on that map, if you zoom out from wherever you are, it will show you the layers that we have in the web map. You can add data . And it will record on your map and show up right away. Now this tree is going to show up on the web map. So that is just an application that you can use on your phone, or you can make it available to anyone so that they can record data out in the field. So this map can be updated in real time.
So users can go out in the field and add more data to it.
I'd like to check if the data I just recorded on my mobile app is on the web map. So here I am on my web map. I'm going to refresh the map. I can use the location search or just scroll to the location and zoom in. Here's the tree that I just recorded on the application on my phone. Black ash, 15 dBH, and I've typed power line as obstruction. So now we know that that worked.
All right, so that was just an overview of the web map that I made. If you guys have any more questions about that, you can ask me afterwards, but I'm just going to go over another map. I made a second map for this project. It's going to be about monitoring for emerald ash borer in Penobscot County. So in preparation for the arrival of EAB, I made a habitat suitability model for all the species of ash that grow naturally in Penobscot County. As Sydney went over, emerald ash borer is an invasive species that attacks ash trees. So I used ArcGIS Model Builder to create a habitat suitability model for ash trees. And the map that I came up with can be used as a tool to find ash trees. And in turn, you can then monitor for the insect. The results I came up with showed that there is suitable habitat throughout Penobscot County with higher suitability in lower Penobscot County. So again, as we talked about before, when you're monitoring for signs, you should look for defoliation of the crown. The first signs will be the defoliation, blonding of the bark, D-shaped exit holes will then show on the bark. And also, if you remove the bark, there will be S-shaped galleries or serpentine-shaped galleries. Within those galleries, there may be larvae. Also on the bark, there will be epicormic branches. And that's from stress, from the tree being stressed out. So my recommendations, one second, I just need to take a drink of water. When you're monitoring for EAB, I recommend that you should set traps at first to monitor for the arrival of EAB and then also monitor for the population. Those traps are just like sticky traps that they put up in ash trees. Again, the map can be used to find ash trees. I'm just going to go back real quick. So this map right here is of Orono. The purple is the most suitable habitat, and the orange is moderate habitat, and the yellow is the lower suitability. So I would go to the purple areas if you're looking for the most suitable habitat for ash trees to hang your traps. So those areas should also be starting points for the parasitic wasps if you're going to be releasing wasps and establishing wasps, because the wasps will be more successful in those areas. They're also attracted to stressed trees. So if you're thinking of removing the trees because they've been attacked by EAB, you might want to consider leaving some of those attacked trees as well. Because if you want to establish your parasitic wasps, you might want to leave some of your trees that have been attacked. Another way to monitor for EAB is the Wasp Watchers program. That is the wasp that is in this picture here. That's the Ceres wasp. That's a native wasp, and that wasp catches EAB and feeds it to its young. So you would go out and you would catch the wasp as it's hunting, and you would take the EAB from it and then release the wasp back out. into the wild. So when you're treating or removing trees, you might want to give priority to street trees or trees that are hazard trees to remove, and leave the trees that are not going to be a big problem. This is the methods for monitoring and management. On the left is a bug trap, and on the right is how you release the wasps in the wild. So that is just a log that you put out, and the wasps are inside that log, and then they get released out. Just real quick to mention the shortcomings of that suitability model. So in the future, if anybody was going to try and make another one, I used all 3 species of ash, and it wasn't a very defined outcome because all 3 species of ash have different habitat preferences. So if I was going to do it again, I might do 3 different maps so that each one could show its specific habitat. And when doing this, you should check out in the field that your map was accurate. And I would also like to thank Jessica Leahy and Rob Yerxa, as well as Sydney Young. And just to mention that field maps application that I showed on the cell phone, those maps can be used offline, and they're customizable as well. So you can change the different options that you can pick. And they can be shared with specific people. They can be made public, or they can just be made private. And that's it.
Well, thank you both. Maybe you can field some questions.
So
Yes,
I'll ask a question. Hi, this is Terry. I was just wondering if either one of you just have a comment on, I wasn't sure whether or not all of the ash trees were identified in town or just the ones on public property. Because, you know, if you don't treat the ones on private, you know, that can spread too. So I was just wondering, you know, does this cover all the trees or not?
This was covering trees that I believed would be in public jurisdiction. So it was not all the trees. I believe that would entail a much larger effort. I think that it would take a lot of time as well. But I was also doing this in part for the Orono Tree Board, so that because there are so many trees that are discussed as being public property and having hazard potential, that I wanted to get as many of those trees down. But I do think that educating landowners is very, very important. So I think that along with noting all of these trees, it is very important to hand in hand educate those landowners.
Yeah, I think you started with the right, you know, elements, you know, because we can start to show people what can be done. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
This is Jennifer. Really fantastic job to both of you. I've seen a lot of EAB presentations, and you guys are top notch. So fantastic job. I was wondering if you could relate what the town of Orono should be doing in relation to what the University of Maine is doing with their kind of more urban trees, and what plans they might have, and how we could piggyback on those or work together.
That's such a good question, and it ties really well with the question that Jessica put in the chat, which is what species do you recommend that we replant if ash trees are removed? So for the last, since the beginning, I think in August or so, we had gotten together and basically met and had an ash tree mall committee, and we all came together and talked about the mall on UMaine's campus because it is all ash trees. And so along with general landscaping, issues such as like cow paths and everything that came up. We also wanted to talk about the replacements for those trees and start with the mall and basically expand to the rest of campus. We had hopes of expanding to the rest of campus, but right now I think, you know, how we treat the mall will probably be a model for the rest of campus. So how Maine is treating it right now that I'm aware of, but Jessica also might have more insight, is that they have a committee of, you know, very qualified people. There's Bill Livingston. There's even people from the astronomy building to talk about lighting and everything. And so we also had someone who was a UMaine alum come in from Colorado, and he now works with urban trees. And so he actually suggested, we all talked about a list of potential replants as well. And those included oaks, maples, willow. I know that there was a pear species and chestnut as well. And they were basically talking about trees that were a little bit more resistant and resilient to tree pest and disease. And so a lot of the time that is depending on the species. So, but generally I think that oaks and maples are a good way to go. But it kind of depends on the species. So I think that as far as replants, I do have a list in my official document, but I personally am a fan of willows. And so, but I think that it depends on the species. And I also think that Bill Livingston is another great resource. Also going forward, if you're interested in maybe attending the mall ash meetings, I'm sure that they would be open to that. I see another question, which is in the chat from Tim, which is, when should treatments be started? Yes, definitely ahead of active detection in Orono. Most of the time, it is recommended that the treatment starts whenever the emerald ash borer is about 15 miles away. That range for me, just based off of the rate of the spread, makes me a little bit nervous. So I did actually recommend in my plan 20. I personally would recommend maybe 20 to 25, just because, you know, there are a lot of people kind of moving back and forth, and there are a lot of campers. And Rob also mentioned that there is a brush pile or a yard waste pile, I believe, at the western end of the town of Orono that also poses a potential hazard. And so Orono is only about, you know, 8 miles wide, but I feel like if the near miss, I will say, of the Bangor incident at Lowe's caused kind of such a flurry, then I would say 20 miles would be a safe bet.
Yeah, I also see a question for the data that I used for the suitability model. I just used the habitat preferences for each ash tree, and I ended up only making one suitability model for all of the ash trees, which I now realize that I should have done 3 different ones, because I kind of predicted that my model would show preference towards like rivers and water, like water bodies, but it really didn't. So if I had a little bit more time now, I would make 3 separate ones for each different type of ash tree, but you know, it just kind of, it didn't come out the way that I had thought it would. But it still did show habitat for ash trees, because I checked it out in the field and I found an ash stand that said it had high suitability, and I was like, oh cool, it worked. But also it did show that in Orono, where there's all the planted ash trees on the street, was not suitable. But I think it's because it's a really highly populated area where there's lots of houses. So that kind of makes sense too, because I said that if it was I put in the model builder that if it's a highly populated area with lots of buildings, that wasn't really suitable.
I see there's a question for Rob, and then maybe we'll bring this to an end.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that we would need to look into if we did want to move toward pesticide application, is that state law requires that you be a licensed applicator for pesticides in order to use them. The town, as a rule, doesn't use them. We do some grub treatments at the cemetery and some other smaller things, but as a regulated stormwater municipality, it is really something that we try to avoid in its entirety. So this would be something where we would need to evaluate a little bit further the environmental and impacts to, especially in an urban setting, impacts to residents and all those sort of aspects of a pesticide application program, and then either decide to become licensed applicators ourselves or bring a contractor on board to facilitate that application. So there'd be some things to look at before we got too far along with pesticides. But I do think that early on, our biggest step is to take the work that these students have done and build from it, and begin to work on a monitoring program for sure, just to be prepared. I think it's a great message that they sent to being ready for something is way better than trying to react to something when it gets here.
In light of the emerald ash borer imminence maybe to this area, then would we completely discourage people from planting ash trees? Any thoughts on that?
If I had a permanent home in Orono, I rent right now, but if I had a permanent home, I personally would choose a different tree to plant. So
List of trees, that's probably what you were inferring.
definitely. I think it's
really wonderful.
Of course, I think it highlights the importance of keeping the ones that we have. And so I think that's very important.
Mm-hmm.
Also, it depends how big the tree is, because the emerald ash borer is not going to attack a very small ash tree. So it might help the future of ash trees if you plant a small ash tree, but you probably would have better luck with a different tree.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Well, I think we should wrap up. The tree board has a regular meeting duties and an agenda that we need to tackle. But Sydney and Ashley, I want to thank you very much for presenting and doing all of this work. Absolutely. And even more importantly, checking that presentation requirement off of your capstone and MF project needs so that you can get grades and actually graduate. So congratulations, and you did a great job. And you can head out. You don't have to sit through the rest of the agenda. And thank you very much.
Thank
you for your work.
Thank you both very much.
Bye.
Thank you.
Well done,
All right,
Jessica.
super. Yes, anytime an opportunity like that comes along, please bring it to us, because that was wonderful.
Well, thanks for hosting. Yes. And one thing, Rob, did you get everything back that you loaned them?
Yep.
Because I can hold their grade.
No, they brought it back, and in fact, they shared the scanned version that I think of the survey. You should actually scan the entire survey, which we only had in print at this point. So we got more than just some help on that, but it was great to work with them for sure. So we do have an agenda of business to follow tonight. So next, if anyone else had anything to say about the presentations before we move on? No? Then we'll go to the agenda review. Did anyone have anything they wanted to add to the agenda or discuss that's not already on there? Cool. We'll move on to the approval of the minutes.
Motion to
Um,
accept minutes as presented.
Second.
Any questions or comments?
I should have
None?
probably written to you during the
Oh,
week.
Cindy, are you
but-
talking?
Yeah, I was, and I had it
There.
muted. I have a difficulty technically with all of this stuff, but I haven't been able to get in and read the minutes. Whenever I look it up, I get the minutes for March. I couldn't find them for April, so I haven't read them. So I'm not gonna vote to accept them because I haven't read them. Just so you know, that's why I'm not gonna vote.
Cindy,
So
some other,
Cindy, in the near future, I can help you with that.
Okay,
I'll come
yeah,
over and help you if that's.
all right,
that's
that'd be great.
I was gonna offer the same thing too. I'm available for
Okay.
IT support.
I did try to read it once and I got a straight line of words. The letters were right on top of each other vertically. Maybe it's my equipment. I'm not sure. But anyway, I don't want to hold up the meeting because of that. But
And I will add, if anyone does want a printed version of this, I can get them dropped off to you.
okay,
Just let me know.
good. That would be good.
So, any other comments about the minutes? Hearing none, we'll take a vote. We'll start with Dave Thompson. Cindy's passing, abstaining. Pat Thompson. Tim White,
Approve.
Jessica Leahy,
Approve.
Jennifer Dan.
Approve if it's okay. I mean, I wasn't at the.
That's true. Yeah, all right. And then Terry, I guess you're in the same
Yeah.
boat.
Abstain, I wasn't there.
So the minutes carry. Election of board officers. So you all have a choice here. You can, so as most of us know, so we've been working on the revision of the tree, the vegetation ordinance. And that's going to public hearing at the May council meeting next Monday, the 10th, which will approve the new structure for, it brings in the associate board members, talks more specifically about the chairperson and things like that. So you could have the option to just simply wait until next month and elect the new officers under the new ordinance, or we can do that now. I'll defer to you on that.
Let's wait and do it under the new ordinance.
Agree.
So is everyone on board with that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll just table that and we'll take another look at it at our June meeting if that works. All right, so we had two issues to discuss tonight. The first is the Godfrey Drive buffer strip. I included a little bit of a map there to kind of indicate what it is. The history there is that this strip of property, which is a 50-foot wide buffer strip between the what was called the R&D park, or that research and development park, when it was constructed back in the 80s, to act basically as a buffer between whatever happened in that development and the residents of Sylvan Road. Over time, I think that strip has grown up to the point where it's not necessarily fulfilling its goals. And Dave wanted to bring this up as a point of discussion to see if the tree board was interested in perhaps taking a look at that property and making some recommendations for something that we could do with the property, or perhaps add some plantings, things like that. So I don't know if you had anything more on that, Dave.
Yeah, it came up at the last planning board meeting when we were talking about the new development that Dice Arts is going to put in. And a number of the residents on the street commented that there isn't a really good buffer anymore for noise and light pollution. Because what you said, the trees have grown up, they're now 45 years old or whatever it is. And we really need to look at it and say, well, what can we do there to create a buffer that's maybe 0 to 20 feet, which that was originally. Well, it wasn't originally. Originally, it was seedlings that got planted, but it grew up fairly fast, so it was an effective buffer. And it lasted for quite a while, but it is not now. I think the first thing that this board needs to do is that maybe before the next meeting, either individually or as a group, go out and look at it and talk about it. You know, there's several different species of trees there. And there's also, in places, a buckthorn infestation.
So Rob, I'll ask point of order. I'm a resident of Sylvan Road, and I don't know if that precludes my participation in discussion on either the Dice Arts redevelopment or the buffer strip.
I don't think it does, Tim. As long as you think you can stay true to your role as a board member, then you should feel free to participate.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to raise it just if there were and yeah, thank you.
I think that the outcome needs to be that we make some kind of a presentation to the town council what the deal is here, because it's going to involve an expenditure of funds to correct the problem.
I wonder if I could just comment. I took a drive by there to see what was there. You know, I live here, but I've never really looked at it. And boy, those trees are really thick. I mean, it's Norway spruce towards the interstate there, and then there's a couple of pine, and then it goes into, I think, Scots pine. Dave, is that what's there mostly?
It's red pine in the middle, and then there are spruce trees on each end.
Yeah, red pine.
Red spruce, and I think it might be Norway spruce. I can't remember.
Yeah. But there's a heck of a lot of trees in there. I mean, the spacing's hardly 4 feet. And I looked at it and said, hey, this is a great buffer, you know, because you can't see through it. But Tim, I understand it would be great for you to say what the expectation is for the people that live along that street. If you are looking for, like, you just want foliage down closer. I could see that. Yeah,
that's the big thing. So the buffer, as Dave said, was done a number of years ago, 40 odd years ago, and it was designed, developed, deployed for a certain level of toxic emissions, noise pollution, light pollution, and the business is proposing an expansion. And so one, the buffer hasn't been maintained. You know, just benign neglect, not that it's a bad thing. The trees were allowed to grow, and it looks very nice. And as you say, it's fairly dense in some areas. But again, the buffer is going to be asked to do increased duty with an increased load of pollution emissions, noise emissions, light emissions from the increase in the business. And so it's a good time, as Rob said, to look at that and to see what we can do to revigorate the buffer area. You know, we've got something there to work with, and just see how we can improve it.
Well, it's an interesting problem, I think.
So we have a few options on how we could proceed from here. We could take a board field trip, I suppose, and all as a group go look at it. We'd have to notice that as a public meeting. And so if other members of the public wanted to come along with us, we would allow that. Or we could look at it individually and then discuss it at our next meeting. I think either option works for me. I just would defer to your thoughts on it.
I personally like the field trip idea because then we can walk around and look and bring some flagging or just it does seem like one that is worth maybe looking at altogether.
I agree. I think it would be worth us getting together, and I think it's worth the effort to look at it. It's also, as we're a relatively new board as far as the number of members, and it would give us a chance to work together and have a shared experience.
Okay, so how about I set up a doodle? Are we gonna be able to do that?
Oh yeah.
To try to figure out when we can all, it may be a little difficult to get 9 people in the same place at the same time. But we have till next month to get that done. So does anybody have any days that they know for sure are out?
I would suggest after 5 o'clock or weekends would be better for those of us that have the proverbial day jobs. I understand that that's going to put you outside your regular workday, Rob. So although I know you work 24 hours a day anyway.
Sophie will tell you I'm a salaried employee, so the work day is negotiable.
Rob, David and I have to leave you right now.
Yes, okay.
We'll see you next time. Bye.
Thanks.
I'd recommend using one of these tree board slots so we know that we've got a Wednesday at 5 in general works. So we could try to pick another Wednesday at 5.
Okay.
I agree with the after 5. Weekends will start to get out for us because of going up to camp.
I guess I can put, we've got the 12th, the 19th, or the 20th of this month. Does any of those days sound
You mean
appealing?
26?
I'll tell Dave will have planning board on the 19th, so actually that one's out.
And Orono Land Trust is on the 12th, second
So the
Wednesday.
26.
sounds like the 26th.
Is that the day you do the school thing for Arbor Day?
No.
That's the 21st, Friday.
Okay,
Friday before that Wednesday.
okay.
So Rob, did you say the 26th or the 25th?
26th or 25th will work for me too. But
26th, perhaps. Okay. Wanted to be.
This is exciting for me personally because I am participating in the Invasive Plant Academy, which is a three full days, and it's on the 25th is the last of the days. So I will know more, I hope, about invasive plants on that Wednesday, the 26th, than I know today.
That sounds great.
we will, we could probably plan to meet out there at the Next Links building parking lot there. That's sort of, that's right adjacent to the lot that we're talking about. On the 26th at 5, and I'll plan to send an invite out to y'all to remind you of it.
Okay.
Cool. All right. Anything else on the buffer strip? So the next thing on the agenda is the planting plan review for the development that Tim was talking about. So Dysarts is redeveloping their existing site. And that plan was approved at the planning board at the last meeting with the condition that they work with the tree board to add some plantings that are appropriate, particularly on the northeast side. So the Godfrey Drive, sort of northeast side of the building, to help act as a little bit of a buffer and screen from the activity at the new site. I sent out the plan. I don't know. Some people aren't plan readers, so I don't know if that was helpful or not. But I guess I would open, I have some thoughts on how we could proceed with this, but maybe we can just get some initial reaction from the board.
That was my first time reading a plan like that, so I wasn't exactly sure how to evaluate it. What I keyed in on was the species choice of putting in white pine, and when I drove by, I noticed that there was a white pine already at the Dysart's compound that was not particularly attractive or vigorous looking, and so I really questioned the species choice, although I didn't necessarily know what the best practice was for what should be planted instead. It just didn't, that seemed like a really, putting in 5-foot white pine was an odd choice, or maybe not achieving the objectives that they had in mind.
I wondered, I mean, both white pine and red maple are pretty intolerant to salts. And I'm guessing that those parking lots or the drive areas are salted fairly frequently. And it would be worth looking at their drainage plan to make sure that those areas aren't draining right into the root zone of those trees. I also noticed that they have the white pines are specified to be planted on 12-foot center. And of course, white pines can get a lot bigger than that at maturity. So perhaps just rethinking the spacing if they decide to go with that species. Rob,
the charge from the tree, from the planning board was that they work with us on all those types of things, species selection, spacing, to achieve the goal of creating a visually pleasant and effective buffer. My thought was that perhaps it would make sense for the board to establish a temporary subcommittee to take a look at this. It feels like to me it'd be a little bit more productive to be able to sit together and look at the plans and go over them and mark them up and do all those sorts of things. I can arrange an in-person meeting if someone was, if people are willing to do that. It just seems like a little bit the most effective way to get a recommendation back out to their engineer.
Could we meet outside somewhere? Like behind the library or something?
Absolutely. Yes, we could.
Well, we could get a twofer because we're going to be right at that site. Hopefully
Yeah.
on the 26th.
Right.
And that would give us an initial look at, and it would help you picture where that planting is going to go and how they're going to expand there. Are they putting another store? I wasn't able to what is that second building?
So that they're demolishing the existing store and building a new one that's set a little further back away from the road. So that's what you see there. The old store is gone.
Okay.
I
Has
saw
there
the
been any-
electrical vehicle charging, which was kind of cool.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Has there been any talk, Rob, about putting in more decorative bushes instead of trees? Because these trees are going to grow up and you're still going to have light get through, beyond those trunks as they get taller and taller. When a pine is small, they're beautiful and they can buffer. But when they get taller, then you lose that again. So I didn't know if along that as a possibility, maybe the neighbors have a thought about it too, but I don't know. Something that's leafy and lilac or whatever, forsythia or whatever.
I really like Barry's idea of going in person and looking at what are the, not exactly sure that hedges right there are doing anything.
Yeah, so I think that's the kind of feedback, exactly that the planning board was looking for. So if the so the charge was, of course, that they work with us. So the building permit and everything isn't being held up by our activity. They just can't do any plantings until we've finalized this. So I don't know that there's a huge rush. So if people want to wait and discuss it at the meeting on the 26th, then I think that would be fine.
Mhm.
I think that's good.
That brings up another point, because I was noticing that our next meeting, which would normally be the first Monday of the month, is June 2nd, the week of Memorial Day. So maybe it would make sense just to simply move our next meeting to a field meeting on the 26th, and that would be that would cover our business for the month. But I defer to you guys on that one.
That makes a lot of sense. And I like the opportunity for us all to be together to talk about it and walk the site, and because the spacings on things seemed kind of odd, as was noted previously.
Okay, so the plans I sent out, is that an effective way? Would you like a printed copy of this? Would that be helpful? Or is the PDF I sent you enough?
I mean, I think for this review that we were able to do for this meeting, that was effective. If we are going to be marking something up in the field, then something larger would be nice.
Yeah, I can bring a full-size set for us to have, to help work through the conversation when we meet on the 26th,
Mhm.
if that, and then we'll mark it all up, and then I'll take it to the engineer and give
Okay.
them our recommendations, if that works.
Are comments on their planting specifications welcome too, or is that outside?
No, absolutely. That's why I give you both sheets. If you've got, because there are some things on there that I don't like, but but I'm gonna let you guys find what those are. Those are the Easter eggs. But no, yeah, absolutely. Any comments you have on that planting plan or the specifications attached to it would be welcome.
Okay.
Okay, so we're gonna we'll meet on the 26th at 5 and discuss both of these in more detail then. Sound good?
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Okay. Then we'll move on to our activity update.
Right.
He's got an update for Arbor Week.
Yeah, if you want me to go ahead with that?
Yeah.
If everyone is in agreement, Patrick got back to me and we could actually meet on the 21st of Friday afternoon. However, I just heard from him today, we cannot actually meet with the kids. He wondered if we could meet on Zoom. And I didn't know, Rob, if we could meet with him on Zoom or if it would go through the school or what? Probably through the town, right?
I think we can probably do it either way.
Okay.
The school
I'll
has the
have,
technology as well, so
yeah.
The school has what?
the school has has technology for remote
Yeah.
meetings. They've been teaching with it all year, so
All right.
It
Okay.
may
I
be
can check
easier
that.
for him to set up his
Yeah.
classroom,
Sure.
have it, and then invite members of the board to join that meeting. Because if
Okay.
we do it the other way around, there's going to be 3 or 4 of us here, and then we're going to invite 25 kids in. So it might be easier to do it the other
Yeah, sure.
way.
Okay, I'll check with him on that to do that on Zoom. And I'm sort of assuming that we would be getting together at sometime around 1:30 that day. He thought it would be nice if someone could read the proclamation. And whether or not we have a presentation of any sort or not, Jessica, there might be something you have in mind, but and others might have some thoughts too, that we can have a little presentation online. And Pat and Dave also, usually are very involved in that. So we will not be meeting on the state Tree City event this year, Jan Santerre said, unfortunately, but she would like to do something on Zoom, and she's trying to figure that out. So whether or not we'll have that particular week, maybe earlier in the week, I don't know yet. But I can let everybody know when I find out. So if
Appreciate your
everybody,
work on that, Cindy. It's a lot of legwork and a lot of coordination and keeping all the balls or pine cones or acorns in the air. So thank you.
oh, well, you're certainly welcome. I raised 6 kids, so this is not difficult. Trying to keep up with all of that, you know,
And
this is simple. So
And there's 7 of us to keep track of here, so
yeah, right.
including
right.
Rob. He's a kid.
Does May 1st, 21st, then that is a suitable day for most people. And like I've talked with a few of our new members and left messages that we don't expect everybody to try to be there during the day. We realize that some of you folks, you know, have your jobs to tend to, and those of us that are so-called retired, we can plan to do that. And Pat and Dave, and usually my husband Jack and I oftentimes do it. You know, we've had Tim there before, and Matt has been there before with us. But anybody else that has the time and can join us, that's wonderful.
I'll know a little bit later. I wonder if I see Kenny's attending the meeting. He isn't in as a panelist, but that would be really great to have the Maine Forest Service get some.
Oh yeah,
the kids see that agency.
yeah, that would be great. I didn't know if Kenny was on. That's good.
I summoned him. That's very weird. Now he's here.
Oh, there he is.
Yeah, I had technical difficulties earlier on. I was out using a state phone and it didn't quite work, but I was able to listen in. So I've paid attention to what's going on. So the date was the 21st.
Friday the 21st, sometime. Well, if we meet up at the garden, we would be there at about 1 o'clock with our supplies and whatever we needed for materials to work with the kids, whether we had trees to plant or rakes or whatever to rake. However, I'm not sure. I'll talk with Patrick and see when would be a good time for us to chime in. And if we can plan ahead somewhat on what we're going to do, we'll have the proclamation. And we'll, if someone would like to give a presentation of some sort, it usually only lasts, if the kids came out at about 10 minutes at 2 or 2 o'clock, it would only last for 15 or 20 minutes.
Yep.
Because they have to get back into school and get ready for the bus and that sort of thing. So.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll look into what I might do from the Maine Forest Service point of view, and I should hear probably Friday. I'll be able to check in to see what we have for bits and bobs.
Oh, great. Yeah, you don't have access to little trees, do you? I mean, we won't actually be there, but they've done that, you know, at the Tree City event. They've always given us trees that I think CMP has donated and stuff like that. You know, little sleeves of them, but that's not necessary. That's just sort of an aside, because I don't know if Jan has been able to even maneuver anything like that, since they're not really meeting with everyone anyway. So maybe we'll just leave that one alone. But
I'll ask her.
Cindy, I'm a little bit confused. You're talking about meeting at the garden about 1:30ish, but then you're talking about the Zoom event. So are we going to?
No, I'm sorry. Yeah, no, it's only a Zoom event.
Okay.
And all I was mentioning is if Kenny had any contact that he was able to get the trees, we could drop them off at the school for Patrick to give to the kids. Not that we're not going to see them. We're only on Zoom. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So if everybody's happy with the 21st, I know Jess had a conflict with the 20th. Usually we meet on that Thursday, so we could, it's fine with me. And I think Pat and Dave, I don't know about other people. So if everybody else is fine with that, I will also let Nancy know, Nancy Ward, so that she would be getting the town council. They need to sign, and we need the date on it. So on the proclamation.
So we could also do somebody up at the garden if they had a cell phone to walk around. There is an ash tree up there, I know, because I remember, Cindy, that in past years that you've done activities around the ash tree, and
Right.
And they're fifth graders once, so even if we're repeating the program, maybe we're hearing it for the second time, but it's the first time that these students would be hearing it. And I think Jessica's students presentation, slice and dice and cut it down to 5 or so minutes, and challenge them to find an ash tree or find the ash trees around town in their yard or in the ornamental garden.
Sounds like a good idea about that. Yeah. Like I said, I'm not that technically, knowledgeable, but if someone else could be there, Jess, you are, and if you can be there, maybe you could maneuver that part. And
Yeah, I'll ask Sydney for her slides. I'm not sure yet. I may have to join by from my smartphone to the Zoom, in which case I will make sure someone has this. Maybe someone could do the slide sharing and advancement, just because I'm still trying to Zoom on the phone is less comfortable than on the desktop, but we can work something out.
Tiny fingers.
anything else about our day with the kids, or our 20 minutes with the kids?
Great. So if anyone wants to offer their help to Cindy and Jessica, then just go ahead.
Yeah.
Just as a question again, to our lurking town of Orono, since there will be 3 or more of us gathered together talking about tree board activities on Friday, do we have to somehow notice the public that there will be this activity?
The lurking, oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say the lurking town of Orono suggests that Rob and Nancy will work together. We'll just post a notice on the website, and if people are so inclined, they can join you. Now, just remember, when people join you, they shouldn't be getting in your way. You should be able to go about your business, and they just have a right to see what you're doing.
Sure. The activity with school, being sensitive to the fact that it's going to be children involved, I would ask if there's consideration for inclusion of the public, or in quotes, just
yeah, I would argue that that's not the board doing business. I would argue that that's the board giving a presentation. And so I would duck that one until somebody called us on it.
Okay. And I appreciate that. I'm not looking to duck and all. I'm looking to make sure that we are transparent in conducting our business. I just don't want to run afoul of showing students when we don't have the proper release.
I think while we're giving an educational presentation to the kids, we're not conducting tree board business and making decisions about, like, we should not discuss the Godfrey Drive while we're there. We should stick to the educational presentation.
That was going to be what I was going to say. I think there's a difference between a tree board activity and conducting tree board business. And I think as long as we make sure that we respect that boundary, we should be in good shape.
Right. That sounds good. Those are good things to talk about.
Okay. The only other thing I wanted to add was that we did hear back, and we've successfully been awarded another year of Tree City USA status. So thank you very much to everyone who who worked on that application, and it's a sense of, I meant to look back. Cindy, do you remember how many years that is now?
Well, this past year was 24, so it'll be our 25th. That's good.
I smell a party at 25th. You got to do something.
Hey. If only we could be open, town could be open.
Well, I'd like to think we're getting closer to that.
Hopefully.
A year is a long, it's almost 52 weeks. So we got all kinds of stuff we can do in that period of time.
Well, thanks for everything. Can put in some time on a day with or a few hours with the kids. I think that's great. And if Kenny can put something together too, that would be wonderful.
Sure. So that's the end of our agenda. Did anyone else have anything to add or comments from the new board members?
I just sent off an email to Jan, so I'll get back to Cindy with what I hear, copy everyone else. So
great. Okay, thank you.
Did we want to go ahead and try to continue converting the old management plan into starting point? I'd be happy to help on that if that's helpful.
I would like to do that, and I'd offer if we can, if you want to help with it. I was trying to think of a couple of ways that we could do it. Is one person reads the PDF aloud, and the other person reads the Word document and catch differences. I'd be up for putting in some time with you on that.
So that would be, we've got a bit of time to get that done because, so our next meeting will be the 26th of May. That will count as our June meeting. And so our next meeting is going to be July 7th, another holiday week. Should we look at meeting the week before that? Would that? So June 30th would be the meeting after that.
Makes sense.
That should work. It feels a long time from now, but yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it'll happen fast. But if we can, that way we can get the notifications out for the meetings, because that would be a little off schedule from normal, but would still have us meeting once a month anyway. Okay, so I'll send her another invite out for the 26th. That will not be a Zoom meeting. That will be in person on Godfrey Drive. And then we'll schedule the meeting after that to be June 30th.
Okay.
And that will count as our July meeting, and then we'll get back on track in August as the
Okay.
Aren't you
first
glad it's not a
Wednesday.
leap year?
I don't know. That will happen in February anyway. It wouldn't matter.
Just kidding.
So yes, because for our new members, we do try to meet the first Wednesday of each month, and that tends to work out pretty well. We've got some people that are pretty involved. Dave, of course, serves on the planning board as well, so his Wednesday evenings every third Wednesday are tied up. So this seems to work out pretty well for most times.
Okay.
Questions?
Motion to adjourn.
I second it.
No roll call on this. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you again,
Bye.
Bob, for all you do.
Good to
Thank
meet
you for
everyone.
the town of
Yep, thanks,
Orono.
bye.
Nice seeing
Thanks,
everybody.